Hey everyone, it is Stephanie here with SK Artistry. So we are doing part 2 of our bee journal today. So we have done part 1. If you have not seen that, you can go back in my videos and watch part 1. And in part 1, we made our file folder book. We made all the pieces and we left off there to pick up here. I want to go ahead and apologize in advance that my printer is running in the background and I am actually recording the audio for this as we do it. That will just be easier for me, and there may be interruptions from children and who knows what else. My dogs may bark, so I'm going to apologize in advance and we'll get through this as smoothly as we can. So when we left off, we had our file folder folio done, but the edges weren't finished. So I went through my book, and if you want to age the edges of your folder, you can go through and do all of that. So I got that done, and I have the paper picked out that I'm going to use today. So I'm going to show you guys why it's important to me that I don't put the book together first, because I use these pieces to use as a template to cut my paper that's going to go on them. One thing I did not talk to you guys about that I have started doing with my journals, and I will show you guys. I'm going to set everything, all these interior pieces off to the side and all of my paper. I reinforce my spine of my book. This is not something you have to do at all, and it is probably the biggest pain in the butt of this process. But I use this Duck Easy Tear paper tape. And I only use it on books where this will match the decor of the book. So it goes good with the look of the bee paper. But if I was doing like bright rainbow colors, I wouldn't use this. I would probably use washi tape or find something else to use. But I do usually reinforce the spines. It's not required. I just like to do it because if it's getting a lot of use and it's being flipped a lot, I worry about this wearing out. So yeah, so I'm gonna show you guys how I do that, which it's really easy. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to make sure everything's lined up before the tape sticks to stuff. So this is the first thing I do before I do anything else at the step we're at now. That's why I'm doing this with you guys. So I get my tape and I try to kind of get it straight, because this is the tricky part. When you put this down, there is no lifting it up. So I try to make sure that I've got my top and my bottom about the same width of tape on each side up here and at the bottom. So it's not like crooked and going like, sideways down the book. And then I cut this from a little bit inside of the spine. I trim that off on this side. This stuff is super sticky. And same thing, a little bit inside of the spine on this side. Now, if you have a book, usually I do books that don't have pockets on these flaps, and you just wrap the tape over this way and wrap, like if the front and the back are just plain front and back with no pockets on them, you can just wrap the tape up. But since we have these pockets, I have to trim this out. So I cut that there, and then cut that. Just take that away and do the same thing on this side and just take that away. And then I fold this up here onto the spine. And then I want to make sure that this tape is all nice and flat over here with no wrinkles, which it is. So then I'll fold this back over and I'll get it laid down here at the top first, just so that's already in place. And then I pull this out I try to keep it from sticking down yet. Right now I'm just trying to get it cut at the length I need it. So, and if it's off just a little bit, it's okay, because your pockets are gonna hide it. I try to not let it stick down yet. It's already stuck there, so. But then I just smooth this out really good. And this is just a thick paper tape. and it really helps reinforce your spine. Now at first it's gonna actually be hard to fold your spine. So I go ahead and get it. Yep, see, sorry, there's my dogs. Because my son just got home, so my dogs are gonna bark. So I'll get this folded over. Increase that really well. And I'll go back in here. This tape kind of bubbles up, and that's okay. It only does it at first. Once it gets stuck down really good, it doesn't, but I like to make sure that I get the fold in my spine first. And then we'll get this side folded over. And there we go. So that's done. Spine is reinforced, and now we are ready to move on to the next step. So I'm going to show you guys how I do my paper, how I use this book and the pieces as a template, and we'll go through several pieces, but then I'm going to take another book where I already have all the pieces cut out for and get it put together so you guys can see the whole process. So we'll go ahead and start with the front cover. It depends on how you want your book to look. I am looking right now and noticing that this piece, usually this is exactly the right thickness for me. I usually don't have to trim top and bottom. On this one I'm going to have to, which I could just use another book if I have one that's, no, I'm just going to stick with this one. I'm going to stick with this one because this will show you guys some stuff anyways. So I usually like for my paper to be in a gap all the way around at each side, and then the top and the bottom. So if you want that look, you can make your gap as small as you want or as big as you want. And I kind of eyeball this. It doesn't have to be exact, but I'll say, okay, I want a gap about this big here, and I want a gap about this big at the top. So on the other two sides, I'll find a spot that's similar. So you can't see, but the edge of my book is right here. So I'll just come in a little bit to where I want the gap, and I'll mark that. And then down here at the bottom, I'll do the same. So my bottom's right here. I want the gap to come to about here. So I'll mark that. So I'm going to cut this piece where I've marked it. And you'll see what that looks like here in just a second. So I'll cut that there. And I always keep all my scraps because you never know what you could use them for. Like this half a sheet that's got this design on it, I might use that for a pocket or something on another book. Okay, so we have this piece now. So now you can see which, when it's out to the tab, there's a gap all the way around on this side, up here, on this side, and at the bottom. So now this is how you use your book for a template. You take your paper and you want to line it up to the top of the tab. So even though it's going to have a gap, it's going to be like down here. When you're doing this part, you want it up to the tab, and you want to pull it all the way over to the left. You can go either way, but I'm going to go to the left first, and I'll trace out where this shows me, and I'll trace out where this shows me. I just do both, even though at this point one of them, this one doesn't matter yet, because then how you've got this gap here, now you take it all the way down to the right. The reason I traced this the first time is because I like to line up this line. So I line this up, and then I retrace this right here, and this is where I'm actually going to cut. So you just remember you cut the smaller, the one that's more inside of the two. So then I cut this. So I like lines as straight as they can be. So I use my paper trimmer, to cut as much of the straight part as I can. And then I use my scissors to go in. So I'll go up as high as I can. And then I use my scissors to go in here and finish cutting this out. And if you do every piece in this book just like that, they will be perfect. They will fit your book. I literally do this step. I don't have like a set that I use as a template. I do this step with every book because if a book's off 1/8 of an inch, it's gonna change the paper. So I never keep like a template. I use the book as the template for every individual book that I make. So now, if you see, here I have my paper. My tab is cut out and I've got my space all the way around and my front piece is done. So moving on, we will do, I actually need to confirm what I use for this. I'm pretty sure this is the piece I'm using on the inside for these journals. Yeah, it is. Okay, so the next piece is the inside of here. Now, the inside of here is actually our piece, our pocket piece that makes the pocket up here. So we don't need to cover this back here because it's going to be covered by this. So this is what I use for the template for cutting this piece because this is what matters for getting covered. So I'm using this half of the paper for this so that this designs up in this corner. So we're going to do the same thing only because I want to trim off this excess on the side and get my length right. So I have my gap at my tab, I have my gap at my top. I know I want a little gap here at the back. And I want a little gap down here at the bottom. So I'll make my line inside a little bit. And we'll trim that up. Okay, now that we have that trimmed up, this one's going to be a little more tricky because it's got this circle at the top, but I'll show you. So I double check it and I make sure I've got a gap at the top in each side and the bottom and bottom top in each side. So then same thing, flip it over, take it up to the corner, mark this, and then you definitely want to do this. You need to do both sides. So I mark my tab here and my circle. The circle is the important part of this. You could honestly just mark the circle on this step, and then when you shift it, mark the tab, but it's okay. So I mark that, shift it down to this edge, make sure it's flush down here, and make sure it's flush up here. Okay, then I trace everything again. So I trace this. And trace this. Now this is where it's going to get a little funky. So you see you need your circle to be cut out to this and this, but you need this roundness to be flush. You see how we got this point here? So I just kind of eyeball this and like think of what the line would do if it was to continue down from both points. And I just kind of sketch that in myself and fill in that spot. So where I'm gonna cut, this eraser's not very long, it'll work. Where I'm actually gonna cut for the circle now is gonna be like that. And I will tell you, I don't ever love the way that the circle notch comes out when I have to cut it, but I haven't found a better way to do it. If you have a better way, please leave a comment with how to do that. but I will show you what it looks like here in a second, and what kind of hides it. And this is part of the reason I like doing the distress ink, because for me it always looks awkward, the circle cutout that is, until I do the distress ink, and then I feel like it looks much better. But let me show you. So I get that cut, and then go around my circle. So I stay outside of my pencil line a little bit when I do this piece, and I just keep turning it as I go. There we go. Okay, so now that is this piece. So as I said, I feel like this looks a little wonky at first whenever I get this cut. It's never exactly, it doesn't ever look perfect to me. I feel like it should come down a little more, but anytime I try it, I end up cutting out more and more and more. However, I will tell you, when it's done and you have that piece done and aged, and you put it in there, it looks great. So I stopped fussing over it. See? So once you have it done and you have the whole book put together, it doesn't look bad. So that's how I do the half circles, which you've only got 2 of them in this book. If you don't have any, or you don't cut this out, then you don't have to worry about doing that part. But again, this is how you use the book as the template. So I'm going to be moving paper around the whole time we're doing this, but I usually would keep these in this pocket and move on to the next spot. But the next thing we need to do is going to be this front pocket. So I'll show you, same thing. What I actually do for the front pocket is do the same thing. I have a gap on each side, and I already had this piece kind of pre-cut because I made some of these last night. So this was a strip that was still left over. Get my gap at the top. Put my line where I want my gap at the bottom. This piece. Now, for this, the nice thing is as long as I have it the right size, I actually don't have to do any tracing or cutting if I did my corners with my envelope punch. If you didn't and you left your corner square, then you don't have to do anything else to this piece because your corners are square. If you cut them in some other shape, you can use that punch to do the same thing to these corners. I'll show you that in a second. Or if you don't have either, if you hand cut out something, you would do the same thing. You would put your paper on there, you would line it up to this corner, trace that out, move it over to this corner, trace that out, move it down to the bottom because you can't forget about this corner, trace that out and cut it. So you would do it by hand. If you have an envelope punch and you cut your corners like I did, then you just simply do the same thing to your paper. So you punch that corner, you punch that corner, and you make sure you get your bottom corner too. And then voila, your piece is cut and trimmed for that pocket. So we have our front piece, we have this pocket piece, and we have this piece all done. So the next thing in our order would be the flap that we have that goes in here and the pocket that is in the front of it. This is up to you depending on how you did this pocket, if you want to cover this whole back piece or not. I do usually. Now I will show you guys, like right now I put this pocket in. This is the way this pocket's going to go in this book. Nothing back here is going to show. If you have your pocket skinnier and there's going to be a strip over here that shows and a strip over here that shows, then I would 100% make sure that you do both sides. But since I know that this pocket, nothing over here is going to show, I'm not going to waste the paper. I'm actually only going to cut a piece to go right here and my pocket. So for that piece, I'm using this paper. I am going to go ahead actually and make a sliver that, move this one out of the way. So since I only need the tab and this area covered, I'll line it up to my tab, and then I'll just make sure I cut enough. So make sure it goes back far enough. I'll just cut to like right here. So I'll cut that off. Okay. So this is gonna go behind here. Now it's too tall and I need a gap at the top and the bottom anyways. So I'm just gonna mark enough off of just one end that I know it'll give me a gap at the top and the bottom. So instead of marking a little at each end, I'll just cut that off. So now, as you can see, when I put this in here, I have a gap at the top and at the bottom. The reason this is important is because it affects where this tab line goes. So even though you're not going to see this down here, it matters for how this is traced out for when you do this part. So same step we've done before. Line it up here at the top. And to the left. And trace it. And if you want to do this side, so you have that line, you don't have to go all the way this time if you don't want, but then pull it down here. And you have, the file folder has a natural little design here. You need to follow all the lines. So pull it down here, line that up, trace that out, cut this out. I actually usually do this. I cut that like that, and then I still use my paper cutter for this straight edge. I like to use my paper cutter to get as many like straight edges as I can. So I put that down. Cut the straight edge. Like I said, I just like, because I use these scissors that are actually not for paper crafting, but I like them because they almost have like little teeth on them, and they like, I can very easily just go one little notch, like right here. I can go like one little notch at a time and they don't slip. These are actually J. Hinkle like kitchen shears that I've always used for crafts, as you can see, because they've got paint all over them. But I can get around that turn a lot nicer with this. When I have my actual like craft scissors, my smooth paper scissors that are also over here somewhere, here they are, like I'll be in the turn and I'll actually like accidentally like slip and like go too far and like cut into it or something. So when I'm doing turns like this, I really like to use these scissors, because I can just control my turn a lot better, and I go slow just because I don't want to waste paper having to cut a new piece if I messed up, or print a new piece. Okay, so we have that cut. That's going to go here. And for this piece, I'm actually using the same design for my pocket. So I'll go ahead and see which way will be better. I'll do it this way. Do the same thing that we did before. Now, this is the natural line of this file folder. This isn't a pocket punch. So I'm gonna actually trace this corner out because it looks different than this corner. And I could punch it to look the same, but it never works out the same because it's already got this angle to it. So I just trace that one out so they look the same. So I'm gonna do the same thing, get my gap on both sides, and I need to pull it down a little bit to get the side so I can see this over here. So I'll mark my side spot first. That's where I'm gonna cut for my side. and then get it back up to the top. And this is where I'll cut for my bottom. Okay. So trim that off. Trim that off. So this is going to be for this pocket. I'm gonna punch this corner and then I'm gonna hand trace this one. So, and if some people, like if it bothered them that both corners weren't the same, you could try to emulate this on the other side. I just don't have it work out for me, and I kind of like the quirkiness of the file folders, that everything's not exactly perfect. So then you just do this. You just get this one down to this corner, line it up at the top and the side, and then do your trace. Oh, my pencil slipped. Okay, so now we have this pocket piece. It's gonna go here, and see how nice that fits to that. And it's actually gonna have a little bit more of a gap, so it's gonna be like there. And I actually just realized I didn't age the bottom of this folder. So like before I glued this down, I would come back in with my brush and I would distress this. Then this is gonna go here. And then this piece is going to be what's inside of that pocket that's covering that. And for that piece, we are using this paper. So for this, I usually like to get my flower bouquet up as high as I can so that I get more of this in this pocket. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and get this up as high as I can without where the notch is. Let me show you from this side. Like I try to like put my finger here and I'm like, okay, the flower's just below the notch. It's like the notch is like right here. So this is where I want my paper to stay for this one. So I'll get that kind of lined up, and you know, if I need to drop it down a little lower so I make sure I don't trim off the top of the flower, I'll do that. But I'll go ahead and mark my gap there and my gap here at the side. Okay, so I've got a gap, 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 gap. So I'll trim this off. And I'll show you that this isn't gonna be, if I wanna move this up more and leave a bigger gap at the bottom, which it's actually going to be down a little more. But if I wanted to, like, if there was a design right here that I was trying to get all in here, I could scoot this up more because the bottom of this is going to be down inside this pocket. So I could scoot this, I could keep moving this paper up actually to like right here to get this whole bouquet in, but then it would be off the top of my paper. But you know, if you have a design, I just want you to understand that as long as the design is still underneath of this pocket, no one's gonna see that the paper stops here or goes all the way down to the bottom. So there's that. But let's go ahead and get this trimmed same way we've done before. You line it up to the top and the side. And this is the only thing we're cutting out on this one is the circle. So you get your line there. You go over to the other side, and I'll show you another way I've done it, but it just does not work out. So I tried once. I said, you know what if I use my circle punch? Let me get the paper out of it. So what if I use my circle punch and I get it in here and I line up this side with this line and punch it. And then I line up this side with this line and I punch it. But then you're left with this. So you still have to figure that out. So you can do that and then try to come back in and cut that out, but I just find that to make it wonky as well. So see, and I'm not even like, I don't even know where to start this line at right now. Like where to start cutting into my paper. So I'm just gonna get into it like right here. So you can do it that way. And I mean, to me, that looks the same as just tracing it out and cutting it. It makes these lines a little sharper, but yeah. So there we go. So now we have this tab, our pocket, and this piece all done. And you know what? We're just trucking right along. So I'll just finish cutting the paper for this book with you all to show you this as well. So this piece is pretty basic. It's just a bee. The next piece, depending on which pocket, sliver, like I call it a sliver pocket, whichever pocket you chose to do here, that will tell you whether you have to end up using a whole sheet of paper or not. So we'll move all of our stuff out of the way that we've cut, and we have this one. So I actually want to try to keep some of this piece of the paper in, so I'm going to flip it that way. So I'll get my gap at the bottom and at the side, and I'll go ahead and mark this back side right here. Excuse me for just a second, guys. Kaden, did you take the trash out? Okay. Words. And then, okay. So I get my gap here, and then I make sure I keep my gap at the bottom. And then I make my gap line at the top. So cut these. Okay, so I have my piece, and we'll do what we need to here. Line it up at the top and the side. See, this is the way the file folder naturally was, so I have to trace out that detail or else we won't keep that detail. And then move it down to this side. That out. I'm not even sure. I'm trying to look over there and see which pocket I did with this book. And I'm not even sure. I don't see the pocket yet, so. Like I said, I like to cheat on this spot, so I'll cut down this and I'll trim this out with my scissors. And then I'll do my straight line with my paper cutter. And I'll finish this off. I see that I didn't stay on the line there at the top, so just trim that off. And then we have this piece. Okay, so this goes here. Now, this is the piece I was talking about. So the reason I cut a full piece here is because even though we're doing a pocket here, I do a couple different kinds of pockets. So I have that pocket, and let me see if one of these other books has the other kind. So when I do this pocket, all of this strip behind here, depending on where I place this pocket, this paper shows to this side. So now if I was placing this all the way over here, I could have cut this paper to like right here if I wanted to. And I might actually put this pocket all the way back here, but it's okay. I went ahead and cut the paper like that. If I do, there's another, this pocket does go all the way to the back. But as you can see, I still cut this paper and I distress this back edge of it just in case I decide to like put this pocket up more. I have the ability to do that. Everything's finished for me. But if I want to scoot it all the way back to this edge, I can, and I could have not cut the paper. So it just depends on how you do that pocket. So this pocket, there's a paper that I actually like to use for this pocket, but it is the same paper that I'm using that I use for the back. So I'm actually going to cut the back piece. It's the other half of the back piece of paper, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut that so I can see if I have enough of the design left. So we're gonna skip ahead to the back real quick. So for my back piece, I mean, again, at this point, you guys should be pros at it. I'm gonna trim a little bit off this bottom just because it's got that white strip, but I'll do my gap here, the tab's up here at the top actually, so I'll do my gap up here, gap here on the side. So I'll mark this side over here. Then I'll move it up to where I want this gap to be. Oh, nope, I'm fibbing. I'll move it to where I want it to be at the bottom because I don't want to trim off any of this design down here. I want to leave this here. So if I'm gonna cut design off, I want it to be from this top part. So this is what I was talking about. I need to see, this is what I'm using for the back cover. This is what I like to use for this pocket. I like the honey and the bees, but I have to have enough of it done. If it's a wider pocket, this piece is too small. If it's a smaller pocket like this one is, then I believe this will be enough to use. So and that's also me trying to get the most I can out of every piece of paper as well. Like it's a less of a scrap that's sitting there waiting for me to possibly use it again. So this piece will be the back. I'm not going to completely trace it out now, but we have that there. Like I said, we did that so we could get this piece. So back to here, this piece is what I want to use for this pocket, and it is enough. See? So sometimes the pocket's wider and this piece wouldn't be enough. So we're going to get our lines so we can get our gap. So we'll do a little bit here at the back. And then from the top, get our gap, trim this up. And then, so we have our piece. We've got our gaps all the way around. Now I've got to trim it up. So again, this is just showing you guys how it's easier if you don't have everything glued down, if you didn't glue it down as you went, to get the paper. And actually we don't have to trim anything down here because it's not a decorative end or anything. This is the only cut we have to make on this piece. So I'll go back over to my handy dandy paper cutter, get my straight line done. And actually, I will stop short just for time's sake. I'll go ahead and stop doing the paper here. You guys only have a little bit left to do, and I've showed you everything, the half circle, how to do every page. There's nothing new left to show you other than just finishing this up. So I'll go ahead and pull out the other book. So you can see that fits to there now. And then that would be the piece that's there. The only thing we have left to do anyways is this back piece, this pocket, and then the back piece that we already cut the paper for. But you guys have seen me do a pocket, you guys have seen me do a back piece. So I trust that you guys can get those pieces cut. And the paper that I'm going to use for those two pieces, I just take here, this will be the back pocket here, this bee design. And then this jar is the piece that I get up here. And when I put this piece in, I want to keep this bee in, and I want to get as much of the honey pot as I can in. So I just shift it up because you won't see this gap down here anyways because it's hidden by the pocket. So I trim it here at the top so that I can get more of this design in. Because if I left the paper down more, it would cut off more of this from the pocket, see? So I scoot it up as much as I can to keep that bee in the cut and to get more of the honey pot in. So that's what would be there behind this pocket, would be this. And sometimes I even move it up and cut the bee off, and I cut right between the two so that I can get more of the honey pot and the flowers in. So I would do that there, and then I do this strip down here at the bottom on the pocket, and then we do our back piece. And then we are at the next step. So I'm gonna show you that with this book. So I have everything cut for this, and I've already gone through and distressed my edges of all my paper. So after we get done cutting all of our pieces, I still leave everything separated, and I go through my paper and I distress all my edges of my paper. So I get my paper all distressed. It is a lot of work, it's tedious, but it really, I think it's worth it. So I've gotten all that done. So the first thing, if you need to keep things in order, do it in whichever way you need to. I know where everything goes, so I just kind of pick it up like so and get it out of my way. So I get all this out of my way and set it to the side. And then I just go with the natural order of things and get my front piece on first. Now, I will tell you, there's a couple little things that I'm going to do to some of the other books. I won't do it to this one so we can, for the video's sake, but I am going to show you a couple different things. Sorry, I'm looking for my big bottle of glue. That is MIA. There it is. Okay, so I don't know what glue you guys use. I use a couple different kinds of glues. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for. So I use Fabrifix or I use Barely Art Glue. Those are the two glues that I exclusively use. I just like the way that they work. So for speed, I like the Fabrifix and that I can kind of shift this around a little bit. So I just flip my paper over and I go around all my edges first. You can do this however you want, but I'll get closer to my edges. And then I just kind of do a zigzag. I've seen people do videos and they only go around their edges. They don't do the middle any. I'm gonna be honest, for some reason that irks me. So I have to glue the whole thing. So then get it flipped over, and then I kind of line this edge in the top and bottom up where I think they're gonna be good. And then slowly lay it down. And you have a little time with the Fabrifix to, move it if you need to. And if I am happy with where it is, then I just start smoothing my edges out. I usually have a burnishing tool, but I'm gonna be honest, whenever I do these books, I just use my hand. I like to be able to come around these edges a little better with my finger and rub off glue if I need to, if it comes out. So, a little glue came out over here. Okay. Now, what I was going to tell you guys is a few of the little things that I'm not going to do with this book, but that I do sometimes, is like if I want to put an eyelet in the front cover, which I will do to this book later, but I can go through the whole book. But say I wanted to put an eyelet in, I would want to go ahead and do that now probably, because it's going to be easier to get it set than once this is in. You would have to go all the way through the back as well. But for what I'm going to do, that's fine. And like I said, I may not do it to this book at all. But you want to go ahead and get that eyelet in, because then when you put this paper down, you actually won't even see the back of the eyelet from this side, because it's going to be behind this pocket. So if there's like any little detail things you want to do to the front, I would do that before you do this. So we've got that down. And as I stated before with another piece, this always happens to me, guys. So give me just a second and let me find my distress ink, because I will show you. Give me just a second. Can't find my pad. There they are. Okay. So sometimes I miss a spot because I wonder if it's a spot that's going to show or not. Like I didn't do this edge right here, but that's at least down to this pocket. This is going to show from where this paper is. So I like to have that distressed. So I'm going to hit that piece real quick. Just get down the edge of this. Okay, so see, I try to keep everything around me just in case moments like that pop up, and I don't have everything glued down yet, so it's still savable. So this piece is gonna go here. So since this gap at the bottom doesn't matter, I line this up to however it looks the best up here, and that's where I'll put that piece down at. So same thing again. I'll get this paper. So I do this before I put this pocket in the book, and like I said, this is the perfect time if you want to do anything like an eyelet or anything to the front of the booklet to do it before you put this front pocket in this. And I probably, at least at this point, will get you guys to, I don't know if you guys would need or would like to see me put the signature in this. So I was gonna at least try to get to that point, but we'll see how we're doing. So flip this over. Get it where I like it. Okay. So get that done, and then we'll get this piece on. That extra glue out of there. Man, I got really close to the edge on this one, which I like that because then I know my edges are sealed down really good, but I've got glue to roll off. Okay. So that's done. So now when I get to this point, I will go ahead and glue this in. Like I said, I'm gonna do this just so I show you guys everything. So I double check everything. I make sure, okay, when I put this in, it's gonna line up. Now, your tabs down here aren't gonna be perfect because they're two different style of tabs, and I'm okay with that. So I look at how this is, and I'm like, am I gonna be okay with this? Because there's a little overhang from that front tab, but I'm okay with that. So now the only thing that I'm questioning is how close this is to the spine of this back here. And I'm wondering if I need to make that a little more shallow, which I think for safety's sakes, I might do. I don't like how this is overlapping a little bit of the line. It needs to actually be inside a little bit. So I'm gonna score this again real quick. All I'm gonna do to fix that I don't like is my score lines right here. Now, I will say it's gonna make me do a little more work. I'm just gonna move my score line in a little bit. So, too much stuff on my desk. So I'm probably gonna score it about here now. So I'm just moving it in a tad, but you'll see it makes a difference. So I moved that in. I'll have to fold this over now. Well, of course it's not going to cooperate. Okay, so now that I moved that over, my edge isn't distressed anymore. So if I've got ink left on here, I can go back down this and just distress this. And this bottom half isn't gonna show anyways. So there we go. And now I've moved this in more to where it's gonna be inside the spine. And I'm much happier with that, much happier. So, and I'm actually, this is what I tell you guys, this is why I don't glue anything down yet. I like that that's inside more, but I feel like I also want to take this little sliver off the bottom here. So I'm going to do that as well of my file folder, because that could get in the way of that pocket folding up and just make it bulkier down there. So I'm just going to take the sliver off. And from where I refolded this, you can see these corners now hit each other. So I'll cut that off as well. I'll just make one more new cut how we did on the first one, from side to side, and cut that off. So now when these fold, they don't hit each other. So now that we've got that done, this is one thing that I wanted to make sure I showed you guys. You want to like draw an imaginary line right about here. So where the right before the curve starts, you want this to be a pocket, right? So we don't want to put glue right here. You can just simply glue on the two pieces here, but I don't like to do that because if you put anything little in there, it could fall down. So I do my two tabs. But then where my imaginary line is going to be, I draw a real line with glue and go all the way down to my bottom. Sorry, I can't tell if I'm on camera or not. And I do my glue outline and then I fill this in. Same way as I've done before. So then that keeps this glued down so nothing falls down below there when your pocket's in. So flip this over, get this down a little bit, and then from here I make sure I line up everything at the top before I start pushing anything down. I line up the top, I line this up. There we go. So I'll get that pushed down. I'll get this side pushed down. And then I just go over this really good to make sure that that all gets glued down really well. So then, now you're at the point where if you don't need this up for any reason, you can put this pocket down. I just do a thin line up each side. So I'll do that on one side, two sides. And you can come in more if you want, but the further out your glue lines are, of course, the more space you're gonna have in your pocket. I push my pocket down and I keep the center down really good so I don't end up with like a gap or a pocket that's like loose. And then I'll get like one side where I feel like it's pushed down really good. And get my extra glue out. And I'll make sure that I get this down as good as I can. And I'll get my other side. So we have our front done. Now I'm not going to pull this too hard because the glue hasn't set yet, but now you see you have your pocket here and you have your pocket up here for that. So the next page is our flat page, which is this one. So we essentially have to do the same thing. You can see on this one, I did cut a full sheet of paper. At the time, I thought I was gonna make a skinnier pocket on this one and I didn't. But this is really the point that I want to get to show you guys the next step. So we're just gonna go ahead and get this paper put in really quick. So same as before, we've got to get, and I actually do this whole flap, the front and the back of it, before I glue this in, before I glue it into the book. So I'm just gonna, I say go through this faster. I'm gonna go through it as fast as I move, which is kind of slow. I like to take my time. I find when I rush that I mess things up and it costs me time and money. Slow and steady wins the race. So sorry this video is so long, you all, but especially if you're going along with me, then you'll probably appreciate it a little more. So I get that done. Like I said, whoop, glue however you want. I just choose to glue more. Get that lined up. Now, with this little pocket that goes in here, I go ahead and get this attached to the front first before I attach the pocket. Again, I don't know that this step really matters, and if you do that first or second, it's just how I do it. Okay, pull these flaps out so that I can smooth this down really good. Okay, now these edges should have been burnished down. You want it as flat as you can, because when you go stick it down, if it's kind of popped up a little bit, then it's going to be like a really loose pocket. I'm happy with this one. I'm happy with how it is. So I just get it laid in here, kind of eyeball, so I know where I'm coming with it. I'm gonna kind of match this corner up here at the top with the way this pocket's cut. So you do actually just see this little sliver of paper, but if this paper didn't come all the way over here, you wouldn't notice it. The only other thing is your tab up here. So if you did what I did on the last book and you just cut a sliver, you're gonna wanna cut another sliver just to go up here at the top. So inside of the pocket, you see the paper at the top. So I'll end up going back and getting a piece and doing that before I put that book together. So on this tab, on this one, you should have the 3 tabs that we cut. The 3 pieces where we scored and left a 1/2 inch all the way around, just like mine. And that's the only place you need to glue for this one. That's what makes your pocket. So make sure I get this side. Didn't look like any came out. Okay, so I'll flip this over. Like I said, I know I'm lining up this corner up here, so I just go ahead and do that first. Do that. Get it set. Okay, and then I just kind of flap that out to do this piece. Double check it, looks good. Let's glue it. Whoop, come here. Okay, so we have that down. We have our inside done. Now this just has to get glued up here. So the one thing I will tell you about this piece, this pocket, is I put a strip of glue right here, but then right here you can see you kind of have where you've got this gap where this pocket comes off at. So if this pocket was all the way over to the left, it would prevent that. I like to do it like this, so I'll just make sure that I get glue in here and I push this side down really good. So I'll show you. So I go a little wider on this side. I put some glue right down the edge and then I come in a little bit to make sure I've got a good grip on this upper edge to it. And then just go down this side. Go from the middle and get this down. Still rubbing because I have glue that came out that I'm trying to rub the excess off. Okay, so we've got that side down pretty good. I look and make sure it's not popping up whenever I stop. And now I'm gonna get this side. So this is what I was talking about. I like to kind of push this edge, like push that down and in, and make sure it's down really good. Okay, so we have our pocket here, and our tab. So this side is done. So on this side, we have to put down our background piece and our pocket pieces. So let's get our background down real quick. And I'm being stared at by a child. Paisley? Oh, I'll see what she needed in just a second. Get that down. Mommy's still recording, but what did you need? What'd you need? Okay. Paisley was gonna come ask me something. Can you ask her what she needed? She's in my bedroom. She's in my bedroom. Okay, so we get this piece down. I'll go ahead and get this one here. What'd you need, P? Just a second ago. Oh.
That if I get a new pet, I know it's gonna be.
Okay, we'll talk about pets later, okay? Okay. Okay, buddy. Paisley, I don't even know if you can legally own peacocks. My daughter thinks she's gonna get a pet peacock. She's crazy. Okay. Okay, so now that I've got this done, before I put this down, I need to determine if I want it to come all the way back here to the back, if I want it to stay up here a little bit. I think with the way this one is, and since it's a bigger pocket, I think I want it to come all the way back here to the back. So that's how I'm gonna do this one. But like I said, this is where you can kind of make that decision on how you wanna do that. And same thing on this one, we're just gluing our 3 flaps that we created when we scored. So there you go. I'm not going to put it all the way on the fold on the spine of this. I'm going to move it in just a little bit to give this flap room to still move. And then I'll make sure it's squared. I'm happy with where it's at. And we'll secure this one. So now we have this pocket on the back. So I'm not going to pull on this too much. I'm going to let this sit for just a second while we finish getting these 3 pieces glued in, because like I said, I want to show you guys the putting the signature in portion, if you guys want to see that. This book, I have to look and see what orders I have, if this one's going to have 1 or 2 signatures, but you don't have to change anything about the way you made the book. You can fit 1 or 2 signatures into this book comfortably. I like it both ways. If you want more pages, 2 signatures is good. I think 1 signature with 8 to 10 pages is plenty. If I usually do either 1 signature of 8 pages or 2 signatures of 6 each. Because I kind of feel like if it's 8 each, it is a little too much for the book, I think. But again, you have some creative freedom on that. So get that down. This piece down. And you want to make sure especially if you're using Fabrifix and you have any come out along the edges, you want to make sure you rub it off, because like if some oozed out of here and I didn't clean it off, then when I go to glue this in, if it sticks there, then this pocket's going to be stuck down. So that's the reason I take extra care to make sure that I've pushed it down really good, and any extra glue that I have that's going to come out came out, so I can make sure that I get it rubbed off before it sticks to anything else and ruins the book. So there we go. Now this pocket needs to go down here. I see some glue coming out over here. Okay, get that side down, get this side down. Okay, so I am not going to put our back page on yet because I haven't talked to the buyer of all of these books yet. So I don't know if they want a closure on theirs, if I'm going to put a ribbon under this or whatever. But if you want this folio to not just be like an open journal, if you want it to be able to have a closure, if you want to do a ribbon closure, you'll want to do that first. It's simple if you haven't done one before. You get the piece of ribbon you're going to use and just say this is ribbon. You lay it across here. I usually do a strip of glue and then flatten, if I use crinkle ribbon, I'll flatten it out along here, get it glued down, and then I'll do the same process I normally do. I'll glue my piece down and then I'll sandwich that ribbon in there and then get it glued down really good. When you flip it over, you've got a ribbon to close your book with. If you want to do any other closures, whatever, you can do whatever you like, or if you do no closure, like some of mine come with, at least this one. So I don't know if I'm putting the back page on or not yet, so I'm just not going to do that one yet. But this is the next step. So now that we've got all of this done, you want to glue this signature into here. So you want to make sure, this not signature, sorry, this flap. So you want to make sure that you leave enough room back here for this to fold over. So you don't want it to be like right on top of that crease. You want it to be in a little bit. And that's why this one's a little skinnier, so that you can move it in a little bit if you need to, and then you don't interfere with this one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw glue on this. Okay. Now, I'll just kind of set this in here. Sorry, I'm a little shaky for some reason. And I'll get this pretty straight. If I want to, I'll close it down like that and like make sure that this is in line and that this is in line, and then I'll come push this down. So I'll push it down both ways. I'll fold it like that and I'll make sure that it's not too far over, and I'll do that for a second. And then I'll fold it back over this way. And I'll push, you can see like that's coming up right there. So I'll hold this up and I'll push from this side and make sure that I get this down really good. So at this point, this is where, if you're gonna put signatures in your book, you would do that now. I do have signatures to put in here, so I will grab one of those really quick. I'm just going to do a single signature in this one because I do know that I have an order for at least one with just a single signature. So this one I believe is 8 pages. So I always put, if you got this cardstock and you're using this, I always put this honey page in the center just so it opens up like that. I do know, like, this is the front page. And sometimes, which I might do it with this one, find one. Actually, I need to be looking at the other side. I'll show you what I'm trying to do. Might use that one. Oh, we'll use this one. I'm actually going to make this page the back page, and I'll show you why. So that when it's opened up, let me fold this page over because it liked being folded the other way, and the place it was in the signature, it's giving me a hard time. Okay, so now in doing that, let me get this back in here. In doing that, when the book's open, this will be right there. And then when you open it, that'll be there. So there we go. Now this, I don't know, again, if you guys are people who are very particular about things, I don't get super particular about this. I make sure that my pages are as lined up as they can be. And then I'll get my wax thread, which I'm going to use yellow for this. A little awl. And sometimes I use a clip or two, not always, but I'll get them out just in case. So like I said, I don't get super particular about this point, but the only thing I really kind of do is try to make sure that at least my top and my bottom hole. So I'm going to do this at an inch in. So I'll do that. I'll move my ruler out of my way, and I'll go through all my pages here at the top where my hole is at an inch, and I'll get it through the back of those. And then I'll do the same thing at the bottom. I'll go an inch up, or at least about an inch. I'll go through here at the bottom. I'll go through all my pages. And then from here, I do kind of at least try to get it centered. So from this hole to this hole, it's like 6 1/4. So I'll go to 3 2/8 or whatever, if that's the right measurement. 3 and 2 little dashes. So I'll pull that out of the bottom. I'll go to that point. And again, like if I'm off like a dash or two, I don't lose any sleep over that. And then I'll get it through here. And now, as far as this goes, this is pretty simple. If I have 2 signatures, I have to make sure that I do one down one side and one down the other. If I just have the one, I make sure that I get this book lined up to where it's within the journal. So I've got a little bit of spot up at the top and a little bit at the bottom. I get my pencil, and that's where my hole is here. That's where my hole is here. And that is where my hole is here. And like I said, if I have 2 signatures, I then have to like do one down one side and one down the other. So that's a little more complicated, but not really. I don't punch my hole yet though. That's the other thing I was missing, is my needle. And I don't cut my thread yet either. I keep my wax thread connected to the spool until I'm sure that I'm at the length I want. So I just pull a good amount off. Get it through my needle. And of course it's not going to cooperate. So I will, trying to think, start through the middle for this book. I start through the middle, and I will figure out, actually, you know what? I do this with my doubles. I don't usually do it with my singles, but for you guys, I'm going to do this. So I'll look, this is about a little over 1/2 inch, but if I was going to make like a center point, I would say that about here is center. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. And then I would do this with my ruler and I would make like almost like where I've got the lines where each of my dots are, make like a little cross. So if there's already a line there, that's great because it'll make it like a cross. If not, I'll know where these 2 points intersect is where I want to put my needle. So take this, put it through that point. And like I said, I just use my needle to do this. I know people usually pre-puncture the holes. I don't. So I do that. Then, well, I'm lying to you because I'm going to have to for this. Then I go through the bottom or the top here. So find your hole. I'll go ahead and do the top one too, even though I actually don't have to do this one because I'll be coming through the other side. So same thing, just where that T is or where the intersect point is. Come through. Okay, so now I know where I'm coming in at. So I go into my journal. Usually I go into the journal first and then line up my signature. Now here, you want to go back out your center hole and you want to make sure you don't go through your yarn. So I kind of pull my yarn down towards the bottom and go back through here. And then same thing, like in the back, you want to make sure you do not go through your wax thread. So then I do that. So I've got the top and the bottom, or the bottom and the middle. And then I'll come through the top, get through the journal, then find the hole, one here. Why is it not coming? There we go. So go through the top. This is where I'll figure out if I need more wax thread or if I don't. I don't. This is plenty. So I will still actually leave it long like this until I'm done. But I just pull this nice and snug and make sure that's good and snug. And then I pull this. You don't want to pull too hard. You don't want to rip the book. But you make sure it's nice and taut out here. So I'll pull a little more here at the top. And then what I do is I go under this thread here just to give it some leverage, and then I do my square knot. So I'll take my needle off now that I have that under there. So if I'm doing left thread behind, then next I'll do left thread in front, and I like to do 3 just to be safe. So then left thread behind, and there we go. And then I cut it off. Now, I like to leave this a little longer because sometimes what I do is I'll take some little cutouts of some of the other embellishments that come with the book and I'll glue them to the ends of these. So it'll be like 2 little flowers hanging from the strings or 2 little bees or whatever. But that is it. And once you've done that, you can do any extra stuff you want. You can embellish your journal. You can put some dangles on it. I'll come through and I'll either trim off stuff like this where that tab on the inside's showing, or I'll just get my ink and I'll come through and I'll make sure that I age it so it's not standing out like just plain manila folder. So you can do either of those. I'll usually put some dangles on maybe one of the tabs. Like I said, if I've done an eyelet in here and done any embellishing. But then you have your book, your signature, your back panel with your pocket, this panel with its pocket, and your back pocket. And then however you choose to finish off your back cover with a ribbon for a closure or not, get your back cover put on. And that is it, you all. We have officially completed the bee journal. I know that this was a long tutorial, so thank you all for bearing with me. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys make a lot of use of old file folders or new ones. And just have fun, y'all. Craft, make your journals, just be happy crafters. So if you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. I hope you guys enjoyed and I'll see you guys around soon.